Hello, Jim Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Before we get to today's subject, I just want to share a couple of polls with you. These came out this morning, which is for me Friday. You're seeing this on Monday, but I'm recording this on Friday. Potentially significant. I was actually quite surprised when I saw the results, especially one result, which I'm going to get to in a moment. They are from Michigan. Now, I have to just give you a caveat. In fairness, these polls are from the Trafalgar Group. The Trafalgar Group is a Republican polling outfit. So it's not somebody like Gallup or Rasmussen. This is party-affiliated polling group, but they do have a reputation. Well, you'll see a little quote on the graphics when I show them to you from Real Clear Politics, which is as objective as you can get as far as a political website. A quote, one of the most accurate polling operations in America, unquote. So let's go to these polls now. The first one is the presidential election, Trump versus Biden. You can see here, Trump 46.6%, Biden 45.2%. Now, that is almost certainly within the margin of error, but it still is significant. It shows them at the very least neck and neck. I had thought before I saw this poll, because of the other polls I've seen, that Biden was way ahead in Michigan. Well, maybe he was, but not now. These polls, by the way, that I'm citing today, they were taken before the Republican convention that just finished yesterday. So who knows what the polls are going to show a few days, a few weeks from now. Biden, we all know, did not get any bounce from his convention, unless you count 1 point as a bounce. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with Trump, not just because, full disclosure, I'm a conservative who supports Trump, but just as a general comment. It's significant if this is what's happening, because if Trump wins Michigan, this is one of the supposed blue wall states that were supposed to be so solidly Democratic that no Republican could ever win them. The other two being Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. I believe I cited a poll a little while ago. I definitely read a poll. Same group, I think it was from the Trafalgar Group, but showed a slight Trump lead in Wisconsin. If Trump wins Michigan and Wisconsin, and I think he is within striking distance in Minnesota, we've had these riots in Minneapolis, so that's going to be another poll to look at. But this next poll is the one that is really surprising to me and potentially significant, because there is speculation on whether the Republicans can keep control of the Senate. They have only a small majority now, and polls have shown the Republicans not losing the Senate, but several races, the Republicans being in trouble. But we have in Michigan John James, the Republican, against Gary Peters, the Democrat. Every poll I have seen so far, up to, but not including the one I'm going to cite right now, Gary Peters has been not only ahead, but comfortably ahead. But now, look at this poll. John James, 48.1% to 46.6% to Gary Peters. That is potentially earth-shaking. That has to be, I'm guessing, probably still within the margin of error, but very close to going outside the margin of error. But the main point that I want to get across today is that this is a recent change. It could signal a trend going forward. And as I said yesterday, I see indications that the Democrats are starting to worry, which tells me that they are getting some bad news in their internal polling. That is the important polling, the internal polling, because the internal polls have to be accurate for either party because both parties use that data, the polling data from the internal polls, to decide, well, where they're going to put money, which state, where they're going to campaign, which states they should just write off. So I'm starting to suspect that the Democrats are getting some bad news. I think specifically that this violence in all these Democrat-run cities is starting to take a toll on their election prospects, because I see some articles now, I've read probably 3, 4 by now, of Democratic pundits calling on Democrats, Democratic candidates, and politicians to condemn the violence occurring in these cities, to speak out more strongly against it because it is starting to hurt them. That's the sense that I'm getting, and I am going to talk more about this maybe in the next vlog, that the Democrats are in a trap, actually. They're caught in a real dilemma between the proverbial rock and a hard place. I'll explain that in the next vlog. What I want to talk about today, it's going to be one of those vlogs where I let somebody else do the talking, because if you watched the Republican National Convention last night, the 4th night of the convention, one of the speakers was Anne Marie Dorn. Anne Marie Dorn, the widow of the 71-year-old retired police officer who was killed by the mob. She spoke yesterday at the Republican National Convention. I just want to play you what she said, and then I'll have some brief comments, and that will be it. So here's the video, and even if you already saw it, if you watched the convention, it's worth watching again. It is really, it's heartbreaking.
Hello, my name is Ann Dorn. I'd like to introduce you to my husband, David. Father of 5, brother of 12, grandfather of 10, friend to thousands. He was the most kind, dedicated, loving life partner I could have hoped for. He had a big smile and a heart to match. He was blessed with the gift of gab, and that gift enabled him to touch souls and inspire people, especially young people. Oh, how kids loved him, and they really loved him back. Dave was all about service. He served 38 years in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and 6 years as Chief of Police as the Moline Acres Police Department. After 44 years, he retired from law enforcement, but he never retired from helping a friend in need. Since he befriended every person he met, he was a very busy man. One example of that was his friendship with a young man named Lee. David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered. Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded, and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave implicitly and asked Dave to help with security. David readily agreed. Whenever the shop's alarm would go off, the alarm company called Dave. He would investigate. If he got a call after I went to bed, he would wake me up and tell me he was going to Lee's, just to make sure everything was all right. Most of the time they were false alarms, triggered by a storm or animals. But I never rested easily until I heard Dave's key turn in the door, knowing he was home safe. The alarm that went off the morning of June 2nd was for real. It was a violent night in St. Louis. 4 officers were shot. Others were hit with rocks and fireworks. At least 5 businesses were damaged, looted, or set on fire. As the Officer Wellness Coordinator and CIT Coordinator with the police department, I was keenly aware of the rioting and spent the evening getting ready to mobilize support for officers who were impacted. After I'd gone to bed, David received a call from Lee's Alarm Company. The front door of the pawn shop had been breached. This time he didn't wake me up to tell me. He probably knew I would have tried to stop him or insist on going with him. As I slept, looters were ransacking the shop. They shot and killed David in cold blood, and then live streamed his execution and his last moments on earth. David's grandson was watching the video on Facebook in real time, not realizing he was watching his own grandfather dying on the sidewalk. I learned of all this around 4 a.m. when our doorbell rang. The chief of police was standing outside. I wondered why Dave had not answered the door. It wasn't uncommon for him to be up watching TV at this time. I called out to him several times. There was no reply. He just wasn't there. I let in the chief, and fighting back tears, he uttered the words every officer's spouse dreads. I relive that horror in my mind every single day. My hope is that having you relive it with me now will help shake this country from this nightmare we are witnessing in our cities and bring about positive, peaceful change. How do we get to this point where so many young people are callous and indifferent towards human life? This isn't a video game where you can commit mayhem and then just hit reset and bring all the characters back to life. David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest. They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can effect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer. We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
In that video that you just saw, it struck me immediately. It was not Trump is really great, vote for Trump. It was a statement that Trump understands, but it was also a plea to these Democratic mayors and governors of these cities and states where all this rioting is occurring, simply to ask Donald Trump, President Trump, to send in the National Guard. That was what the speech that she gave was really about. Not saying vote for Trump, just call in the National Guard. Call in the National Guard to stop this before any more people are killed, of course. That's the main thing, but also any more property damage, any more fires set, any more violence. Just call in the National Guard. But I want to end on this very important point, at least it was to me, a really great question to me. Why was Anne Marie Dorn speaking at the Republican National Convention and not at the Democratic National Convention? I wonder if they even asked her. I am very, very, very sure, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I am very, very sure that she was not even invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention, which gets me to my main point, because I have to ask this question. You should all be asking this question too. Simply, why was Anne Marie Dorn speaking at the Republican National Convention and not at the Democratic National Convention. In fact, I think I am on very safe ground thinking that she wasn't even invited. She was not even asked. The widow of this retired police officer, you just saw the video, her description of him. She was not even invited to speak. I am sure of that, and that tells me everything I need to know about the Democratic Party. It should tell all of you the same thing, just about everything you need to know about what has happened to the Democratic Party as it has moved so far to the left that they cannot even mention Antifa and Black Lives Matter. They cannot simply admit that they are a Marxist group that advocates violence. They are a violent Marxist group. They are not peaceful protesters. That's it for today. Thanks for stopping by, and I would love a thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like it. If you have any comments, you can put them in the comment section below the video. Questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting subscribers, but most of all, come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.